Hey everybody! Last time on Nostalgia Trip, we went over the classic Tomb Raider games by Core Design. If you didn't catch that video though, no worries, because this one is going to be completely different. Angel of Darkness, released in 2003, is by far the black sheep of the Tomb Raider franchise, and was almost a franchise killer. Plagued by a myriad of developmental and release problems, Angel of Darkness lives mostly in infamy, and as a symbol of a change in eras, though not in the way Core Design might have wanted. Alright, okay, so those seem like harsh words. So, what's the deal? Well, let's start with the basics. Angel of Darkness, game number 6 in the Tomb Raider series, is the first game to operate on a completely different engine than its sisters. Unlike the previous games, which were developed for PC and PlayStation in tandem, Angel of Darkness was a concentrated effort to make the jump to the PlayStation 2, and utilize the most that the new console had to offer. Bringing Lara Croft into a new generation of consoles came with several burdens. On top of the desire to put a fresh coat of paint on the series with a shiny new engine and curvy new models and environments, competition with other action-adventure games in the market inspired several key changes in gameplay and the overall feel of the game. The popularity of Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation prompted the integration of stealth mechanics, and the cult classic Sega title Shenmue inspired a more open-world, dialogue-oriented exploration experience. And you know what? That combination sounds like a pretty cool game, actually. Though it's a bit of a departure from what the Tomb Raider series had been about before then, being more of a platforming, run-and-gun sort of thing. Still, a little ambition isn't so bad. I maybe wouldn't be so ambitious as to mimic a game that was, at the time, the most expensive game to develop ever, and a commercial flop, but hey, Core Design is an experienced team. They know what they're doing. Well, okay, maybe that's not entirely true. You see, development for Angel of Darkness started in 2000, and at that time, Core Design was still making Tomb Raider Chronicles, the 5th game. So, Core split into two teams, the experienced series regulars making Chronicles, and a team of fresh faces working on Angel of Darkness. That seems like kind of a mistake. The entire first year of development was reportedly scrapped, so that's a good sign. But let's fast forward a bit. What kind of product did the public get when the game released in 2003? Angel of Darkness picks up the story where the 4th game, The Last Revelation, left off. In The Last Revelation, spoilers, Lara Croft is left for dead by her mentor, Werner von Croy. Chronicles, as a result, is entirely an anthology of past adventures, never addressing if or how Lara would be coming back. In a way, Angel of Darkness doesn't address that either. While it's never explained how she escaped her gritty fate in Egypt, the game opens with Lara confronting her old professor, who, in fairness, does look a lot better in this game than his previous incarnations. He's not in the game very long, though. Framed for Werner's murder by, herself? Lara has to investigate his death while evading French police, or gendarmerie, if you will. The first 5 hours or so of the game are set entirely in modern Paris. Or, well, 2000s Paris. No, sorry. A British game dev's idea of 2000s Paris. Whew. Anyway, it's certainly new compared to the previous game's assortment of ancient and exotic locales. It doesn't look too bad, though. I like the levels that take place in the Louvre, even though it doesn't look anything like the Louvre. I mean, unless it's gone through some downsizing. I'm also pretty sure that the actual Louvre doesn't have any kind of real dig site hidden underneath it anywhere, because that would be absolute lunacy. Where would the French catacombs fit? It's nonsense. True to Tomb Raider form, the game does start diving into the realm of the fantastic, bringing back classics like Reanimated Dead and... Hey, stop! Get the goddamn bats! Real talk, nothing in the game bothers me more than these bats. I haven't talked about the controls yet, or any of the funky mechanics, but these bats take the cake. In the time I spent in this area, the bats took 300% of my health. I'm not sure if it was some sort of bug, or if they're really intended to be this annoying, because sure, you can't shoot them, but they shouldn't hang around quite this long. Anyway, security guards die after like 2 shots to the head, but bats are forever. Okay, I'm done, really, I'm done. The parts of this game that feel like a Tomb Raider game are actually pretty good. Once you get past Paris, the environments are pretty cool, and I actually really do like the Hall of Seasons levels, at least the idea of them. These levels start to bring back the platforming elements of Tomb Raider, and the traps are pretty neat, even if some of them aren't very well executed. Unfortunately, this is where the development problems really start to cut into the game experience. According to Jeremy Heath Smith, co-founder of Core Design, the obsession with making Lara look her best for the new console resulted in the controls being designed around the animation, as opposed to the other way around. What this means is that Laura looks damn good, and yet feels like absolute garbage. Mr. Heathsmith reportedly experienced this himself at a buyer's conference before release, when he started openly swearing in front of onlookers while struggling to lift Laura onto this dumpster. This is the tutorial level. That's a bad first impression. As for my experience with it, here's me trying to get through one of the most ridiculous platforming experiences I've ever suffered. This is the Wrath of the Beast level, a branch of the Hall of Seasons levels, where the gimmick is that the floor crumbles out from beneath you with little warning. Plenty of games do this, and that's fine, when you have a tight control over your character. It's supposed to be thrilling, to inspire a sense of danger and urgency, but that doesn't really work when you have to attempt it several times over, because the jumping is imprecise, or the controls for grabbing an edge are unresponsive, or because, like me, you get misled by the level design and spend several minutes attempting a jump that turns out to be impossible. Nobody likes a platforming game that doesn't handle well, and with Tomb Raider's history being deeply embroiled in that genre, this comes across as, well, a pretty shameful display. To make matters worse, the PC controls were assigned last minute, so they're especially garbage.
Then use the left analog stick to move me around.
Yeah, let me just, find that on the keyboard here. Not there. There are other aspects to the game that feel unpolished, of course, to lesser extents. Camera control is a real problem. You can theoretically control the camera with the mouse, but it also spins Lara around, so it's actually more disorienting than just leaving the mouse alone and using the keyboard exclusively. The series staple of the look button is also, unfortunately, much clunkier in this version, owing to the fact that it pulls double duty as the sprint button if you're moving. It's also inverted from the previous games for some reason, which is really just bizarre. Angel of Darkness inherits the manual save and load system from the previous games, albeit sloppier, since it doesn't automatically highlight the last save you made. But the quick save and quick load feature is handy, aside from that pesky part where it breaks the engine. I believe this was eventually patched, so this is from Kadarev's speedrun of Build 49 of the game. Something about how the game saves Laura's position in the world can cause her to clip out of bounds, which then wreaks havoc on how the game renders the rest of the level. Conveniently, quick saves also maintain Laura's momentum seemingly indefinitely, creating the ability to super jump. Kadarev's speedrun clocks in at 21 minutes and 17 seconds because of bugs like these. I'll link the video in the description because it's a neat watch. So, how about the stealth part of the game? Well, that's also a bit messy. It's easy to see what they were going for, but unfortunately it just doesn't really get there. The guards' detection of you is inconsistent, and their pathing isn't exactly perfect. And the fact that this guy doesn't see me is just criminal. The game never actually tells you that you can knock out a guard from behind either, and there's no on-screen prompt. So, good luck with that one. But hey, let's talk about the story. From what I've seen, when Tomb Raider fans talk about this game, the story is agreed upon as the only redeemable feature. Leading from the murder of Werner von Croy, Laura investigates what he was working on before his death, and slowly uncovers progressively spookier and spookier details about the Monstrum, a serial killer terrorizing Paris. Various strange characters reveal themselves, and their involvement in Werner's murder and the Monstrum killings slowly unravels. It doesn't sound too bad, to be honest. There are some weird, unsettling things that reveal throughout the game, and the characters are alright, but I don't know about it necessarily being all that special. This game was supposed to be the first in a trilogy, so maybe the other two games would have expanded upon the story, and I know that a fair amount of content was cut. But in the game as it is, there's really not enough that stands out that I could ever recommend this game to someone who wasn't already invested in Tomb Raider as a franchise. It just doesn't strike me as anything better than maybe above average for an action game released in 2003. That said, it is an improvement over previous games in the series, where the story involvement was mostly limited to cutscenes and there was nary a twist in sight. It feels good to feel like you have more of an impact on the story, even if it's mostly superficial, and in that way, the involvement of dialogue with other characters succeeds. I do wonder, however, how much the involvement of this man skews people's opinions of the story. Designed as a character that Core Design could make a spin-off game with, Curtis Trent here, is a, mercenary, maybe? I'll be honest, I'm not really clear on why he's here, or why he's important enough that he has his own playable levels. I guess he is pretty hot, though. Alright, he can stay. This game definitely had ambition, and it tried to do a lot of things at once. A new engine, new moves, new mechanics, new characters. It's an interesting addition to the Tomb Raider canon as it is, and if it had had the time it needed, I think it could have actually been a really good game, at least as good as Legend, if not better, with more depth and scope. However, who knows how long that would have been? and with as much executive meddling as was reportedly happening, maybe that perfect project would have never been finished at all. You can edit anything down to perfection over time, but at a certain point, it has to go out there. And unfortunately, when Angel of Darkness went out there, it signaled the end of Core Design's Tomb Raider, and eventually the end of Core Design itself. Eidos transferred the Tomb Raider IP to Crystal Dynamics almost immediately after the release of Angel of Darkness. Following the transfer of the IP, some members of Core left and created Circle Studio, a more or less unsuccessful studio that was liquidated in 2007, while Core Design's assets and other staff were acquired by Rebellion Developments to form Rebellion Studio in Derby, which was later closed in 2010. Crystal Dynamics rebooted the series entirely with Tomb Raider Legend in 2006, and have been making the Tomb Raider games we know and love ever since. So there you have it, the rise and fall of Core Design's Tomb Raider, and the start of a new era in gaming. Maybe I'll even talk a little bit about Tomb Raider Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld in a later episode of Nostalgia Trip. But for now, if you're really interested in seeing Angel of Darkness for yourself, it is available on Steam and on Good Old Games. I don't think you'll have as much fun as you might think, but I certainly can't stop you. Happy gaming, you weirdos. Hey, real quick, whose bright idea was it to include a stamina meter in a game series defined by climbing? Anyone? Anyone want to own up? No? Nobody? Terrible. Just terrible.